Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. So it's a minute after the hour, so I think we'll get started. I'm Michael Green, and I am the host / moderator for the session today. And this is going to be focused on the future of graphic medicine. We have a interesting, diverse group of speakers to talk about it. And if there's time at the end, which I think there will be, we should be able to have a conversation about it. This summit, as we're calling it, has been a joint effort between SAW, the Sequential Arts Workshop, and the Graphic Medicine International Collective. And we hope to continue to do things together because it brings together communities who have intersecting Venn diagrams, but have some differences as well. And so it's good to expand our audiences, I think. And I suspect for some of the people are new to graphic medicine, and some of the participants are new to SAW. It seems to be a synergistic relationship. So we'll be eager to hear afterwards how people think this has worked. I agree, it's been very interesting and stimulating to have such a broad worldwide participation. And I think we learned from each other, and it's always useful to be exposed to people and cultures and experiences from different places. And there's going to be more of some international aspect at this session today. I am going to share my screen really briefly to show slides, which you may have already seen. Do you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. So everyone knows this, where we're at is the conference. Here's today. We're at the third session, What's Next for Graphic Medicine? In 2 hours from now, there's a workshop featuring Maureen Burdock on doing research. 2 hours after that is a closing talk. And at 6:30 Eastern time, open Zoom room. And that will conclude the session. This is the graphic medicine information. If you are new to it or want to get more information about graphic medicine, you can go to the graphicmedicine.org website or scan that QR code, and that'll take you to the website. This is just a reminder that SAW has an online certificate program, and more information could be found on their website. There's an ongoing monthly working group on graphic memoir, which SAW hosts, and they always are happy to accept donations and make it easy to do that. And that's all for the slides. So the way this is going to work, we have 4 speakers today: A. David Lewis, Jeannie Mecorney, Paul Mitchell, and David Greenfield. And we're going to go in that order. I will do really very brief introductions. I'll put their bios in the chat, and if you want to read more, and then turn it over to them. At the end, we will open it up for discussion and see what people want to talk about. So first up is A. David Lewis, who's an associate professor in English and Health Humanities at MCPHS University in Boston. And in addition to lots of other stuff, he's co-editor of the Graphic Medicine Review. And I'm going to just put that in the chat. And rather than read all this, you can read it on your own, and I will turn it over to Dr. Lewis, who is going to speak to us.
Thank you, Michael.
Dave. Sure.
Can I share my screen? I have a little slideshow here. I'm sending
Yes.
you a quick request.
Yep. And
Thank
I need to spotlight
Oh, cool. I've always wanted to be in the spotlight.
you.
All right. Everyone good? Everyone settled? Can everyone hear me? All
All
right.
good.
Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, and those beyond the binary, thank you for this chance to speak today. Prior to last night, the summer doldrums had descended upon my brain, and perhaps the steady torrent of breaking news here in the United States had addled it even further. I was struggling to cohere the thoughts and anxieties and experiences that I wanted to address for today's talk. Fortunately, in addition to Superman soaring into theaters this week, last night's inspiring awards ceremony ended up fashioning a through line much easier. Back in February, I had the honor to serve on the shortlist committee, and over the ensuing months, we had the opportunity to read thousands of pages of graphic medicine produced since 2024. While it was time consuming, sure, it was also fascinating. The field or the genre or movement has expanded in so many directions across so many concerns, and notably all across the world. Last night, as the final nominees and winners were announced, even the narrowed list still represented an impressive span. There was gender affirming care, health protocols, mental health, mental illness, cancer, STIs, alopecia, sight loss, intergenerational trauma, vaccinations. They were set in ERs, research centers, clinics, people's homes, people without homes, and internationally. Chicago, Boston, Montreal, Prague, Ireland. In short, graphic medicine is global. That is not to say that it's uniform nor regimented. Over the years, I have been delighted to learn about the varied approaches and cultural particularities of Medicina Graphica, of Graphic Medicine Italia, of Graphic Medicine J in Japan, and especially this weekend, the work coming out of places like Iran. The Graphic Medicine International Collective is so very well named. However, for all of its wonderful heterogeneity, uh, graphic medicine is also consistent. That is, the award committee was given clear criteria for evaluating all the submitted works, and moreover, all the works could be viewed in terms of my scholarly field, health humanities. Frequently, when I'm challenged by students at my school what the humanities can do for them as physician assistants, as dental hygienists, as sports therapists, as radiologic technologists, and the like, I point to the following. Humanities boosts critical thinking and communication skills, enhanced problem solving and flexibility of thought, better clinicians' tools and reduced burnout, improved health, well being, community, and empathy, and maybe even stronger ties to humanitarian worldviews and inclusive philosophies. The best graphic medicine achieves all of these. But in this particular moment in American society, I'm compelled to, again, to check if all of these goals of humanities are truly universal. I asked something like this question back in 2020 during the initial crush of the pandemic when I responded to a compelling article featuring my colleague Sathiraj Venkatesan in India. I was led then, as I am now, to envision the future of graphic medicine as more than a field or a genre or a movement. I wrote, there is a subtle network forming, an invisible one, but we are becoming part of a shared worldwide system. I hesitate to call it an organization or association or group because those words not only sound too small, but also too hegemonic. Instead, I want to reach back and pull a more archaic, more patriarchal world. I think we need to reclaim and redefine the idea of being a global guild. Graphic medicine, conceptually, is nothing new. We have ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics depicting health remedies and procedures, and we have classical Islamic illustrations of salves and balms being prepared for widespread use. It can be found all across cultures, histories, and their art. But sometime between Justin Green and Ian Williams, graphic medicine finally crystallized. I think it responded to a need and to a call. With the rise of digital technology, of the modern press for human rights, of the globalization of corporate interests and their reach, of alarm over humans' impacts on the natural world and our own systems, we need each other. The paradox is that this has always been true, and it's also more true now than ever. The United States is in the throes of reevaluating its own future. And one response is to embrace this guild. That is, we need to engage in graphic medicine locally and regionally while also acknowledging our connection to a worldwide effort. To that end, I'm pleased to share that we are preparing for a Boston area event this fall to bring voices from across our community with the goal of planning further in 2026. Those who cannot join us here in Massachusetts at that time will be welcome to follow this New England Graphic Medicine Summit from anywhere on the planet via Zoom. We want to let our colleagues in New Delhi, in Dublin, in Venice, in Tehran, in Rio de Janeiro, in Sydney, and all across this global guild to what Northeastern America can offer them and humbly what we might need. I believe, now more than ever, in the intersectionality and the potency of graphic medicine. What's next for graphic medicine? By doing more regional work, with aligned goals and principles, we are contributing to stronger ties internationally and across communities. We're individual panels building a page, contributing to a shared story, one that can be read in all languages and drawn across the whole map. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you so much, Dave. That was terrific. And I'm feel like you've thrown the gauntlet down a little bit, and that's good. And looking forward to what people are going to have to say about where we're going next in light of the changes and global reach that you're articulating. So terrific. Um, uh, Next up is Jeannie Mecorney, who has a traditional art degree and a master's in education, spent many years as a graphic designer in web, film, print, and TV before retiring and making comics about families and chickens. And I will put that in the chat and turn it over. I have to figure out how to unpin Dave. Remove spotlight. There we go. And
Great.
turn it over. Great.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that was a great presentation. I can really feel that global feeling that we need right now. So yeah, my name is Jeannie Mecorney, and I'm the Graphic Medicine International Collective on graphic medicine. I'm the mental health comics liaison, and a student at the Sequential Artist Group workshop. First of all, just to get this over with, I am zooming in from the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. And today, I want to talk about where graphic medicine can go next and why mental health spaces are a vital part of that future. I'd like to start by showing a 1-minute video I created for my graphic memoir, so you can see where I'm coming from, and then discuss how I use my project and other mental health graphic memoir and novels to engage mental health community organizations. I think this short video shows how images can engage an audience better than mere words. That's why we're all here, visual artists with stories to tell. Finished a draft of my graphic memoir. It is a story of growing up in the 1950s with a father diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and a codependent mother. I call it my nuclear. Family life was chaotic and frightening. I have 3 siblings, and all 4 of us played our dysfunctional roles. Family trauma and adverse childhood experiences create toxic environments, affecting otherwise healthy children throughout their lives. If you know what it's like growing up in crazy land, I hope this book shows you you're not alone. For those who do not know, let me show you. Thanks for watching. That was really my entry into graphic medicine after I retired. These are some of the conferences where I presented the importance of graphic memoir for both patients and society. In 2022, I presented at the Boston Trauma Conference, where I shared a poster session on my memoir. It was attended mostly by psychiatrists and therapists. I'm neither, so I found it strangely comforting to have so many therapists around me. I mean, not just one, but hundreds. Those who stopped by to read my preview of my memoir were clearly moved. One even took me by the hands, looked me in the eyes, and said, "I am so sorry." And I wasn't even charged a penny, so that was a good reason for going there. That same year, I also presented at the Graphic Medicine Conference in Chicago and participated in a panel discussion called "The Graphic is the Medicine." I don't have a photo of me presenting, just great photos of the other members of the panel who are from SAW. So I just put a drawing here from my memoir to mark that event. Last year, I ran a zine making workshop at the 2024 National NAMI Conference in Denver. If you've never heard of NAMI, it's the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and it's the largest grassroots mental health organization in the United States. Their conferences bring together psychiatrists, therapists, caregivers, policymakers, and people living with mental illness. I led a session called "Telling Your Story Through Drawing Comics," a hands-on workshop using prompts to create an 8-page zine. But what surprised me wasn't how well the workshop went. It was how unfamiliar the audience was with graphic medicine. Many had never even read a graphic novel, much less seen one or picked one up. But once I showed them these examples and more of published graphic medicine works, memoirs, stories of care, and lived experience from the Graphic Medicine website, something clicked. One attendee who works in a hospital psychiatric ward told me they were blown away by the emotional depth and range of these stories. They had no idea these existed. Then came the zine making. I started with a Mark Maron, who's a comic, if people are familiar with Mark Maron. His quote, "The monster I created to protect me as a child is difficult to control." The room lit up. People shared intimate, vulnerable, funny, and powerful moments from their lives. These are some that were gifted to me at the end of the workshop. I just am showing the titles as I don't feel comfortable sharing their stories since I didn't get permission. So that's a note to self. Next time I'll get permission so I can share these stories. Afterward, one of the attendees came up to me and asked me to read her zine. This is the cover, which is called Help Me, and the back. She told me she finally felt seen. That moment has stayed with me because it reminded me that graphic medicine doesn't just belong in libraries or medical schools, online or in bookstores. It belongs wherever people are telling and reshaping their mental health stories. Mental health spaces like NAMI are full of people craving new ways to share, connect, and feel understood. And graphic storytelling can do just that. It's accessible, creative, and profoundly validating. Drawing my story has helped me work through the issues in my life that have been so confusing to me. I wonder why I stayed in abusive and dysfunctional relationships for far too long. Why was I so afraid of following my dreams? And why did I hurt my own children with my behavior with generational trauma? This process of recreating what happened in a visual way has changed me in profound ways. It's as if a fog has lifted and I am able to stop hiding and stop waiting for things to get better. Sharing my story at conferences is proof to me that I survived and have come out the other side. I believe drawing our stories, reading graphic medicine, and educating everyone about the way in which comics are an empathetic and engaging storytelling genre is transformative and so important. Doing so will lift the stigma of mental illness, and hopefully, as we wait for a kinder future, we will see the effects of trauma less and less in our world. That is why I show up at mental health conferences and present workshops on zines and ways we can all tell our stories and introduce new audiences to graphic memoir and novels in medicine. This year, I hope to bring my dog and pony show to the California NAMI conference in October. And I encourage others in this community to do the same wherever they live. There are NAMI affiliates in every state, along with other mental health organizations eager for new tools, new voices, and new perspectives. Graphic medicine has already shown it can educate, humanize, and heal. Now it's time to broaden that impact. Let's bring our comics and our workshops into these spaces, not just to tell stories, but to listen, connect, and build. Thank you. If you're interested in my, thank you for the applause, I can see it. If you're interested in my socials, you can take a screenshot of this slide. So I'll leave it up for a minute or two. While you're there, you can check out my single panel comic, which is called Chicken Scratch, which is why I've got a chicken on my head, for some hilarity and to see where I escape when things are depressing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That was terrific. So now we're learning. It'd be interesting to have this discussion at the end about the kind of different ways that people view how graphic medicine can be useful to the world. I mean, this is, you're raising the idea that engaging graphic medicine as a writer can be healing, and that's and the idea of expanding that from the individual to like a broader group of folks. And so be interested to sort of explore how to do that. And I look forward to the conversation about that. So next up is Paul Mitchell, who is an associate professor of English at the UCV in Valencia, Spain. And his latest research project explores graphic pathographies, particularly in comics and zines, the representation of gender and art as an activist practice. So I will turn it over to Paul.
Vale. Okay. Now I think you can hear me, no?
Yes.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Paul Mitchell. And if the question is, what's next for... can you see the screen, the slides?
Yes.
Yes.
You can see my slides, yeah? No problem.
Yep. That's
okay. Good. Okay. Yeah, so if the question is what's next for graphic medicine, then my answer is kind of going to follow on from Jenny's and say that I think that zines are an important tool that we can use to coordinate and stimulate greater activism. And I guess zines are still a little bit on the margins of the graphic medicine world. I mean, in terms of comics and graphic novels, they certainly receive less critical attention. But in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to explore how zines are deeply connected to one of the most foundational concepts in graphic medicine, and that is how to make healthcare discourses more democratic and inclusive. And so the zines I'm interested in, zine meaning personal zine, are a form of self-published pathography that typically incorporates handwritten or typed text, drawings and collages. And they're deliberately low cost to make and to buy and have very limited distribution. So in the past, zines were typically distributed as photocopies, but in recent years, digital and web-based zines have become a lot more common. And while they can be whimsical or irreverent, zines can also deliver deeply moving and powerful testimonies about illness, particularly, I think, from people and communities whose voices are marginalized in healthcare narratives. So in graphic medicine, I think we're often concerned with the issue of authenticity. And for me, zines offer us an incredibly intimate and unfiltered insight into the lives of their creators. And so I think they can help us to understand illness experiences that are excluded from cultural spaces. And so for the remainder of my time, I'm going to focus on endometriosis, or endo as it's more commonly known. And I'll explore how people have turned to zine making as a way to articulate their experiences and to make visible healthcare inequalities and systemic gaps in medical knowledge. But rather than reading from a particular text, I'm going to give a brief overview of the endocorpus that I've been collecting. At the moment, I think it consists of around 30 zines about endometriosis, but this is by no means a complete list. So if anybody is out there and they know of any other zines from the States or from Canada, New Zealand, I'd be incredibly appreciative if you could get in touch and let me know about them. But today I'm going to talk specifically about some zines from the United Kingdom. Now, time is very short to explain a complex disease like endometriosis, but suffice to say it's a debilitating condition that occurs when hormone responsive tissue grows outside the uterus. And typically, this can cause organs in the pelvic region to become stuck together, or people experience severe pain when menstruating, having sex, or defecating, which Audrey Dillon Sinclair's sketch of an angry looking uterus suitably illustrates. And the disease affects approximately, I think, around 190 million people globally, most of whom are cisgender women, though not exclusively. And yet, despite its prevalence and its significant physical and psychological impact, endo still lacks visibility both medically and socially. And so I want to argue that perzines offer a radically democratic and inclusive space for individuals with endo to express their struggles and establish empathetic communities. And when we read them together collectively, these zines become a really powerful grassroots archive that consistently exposes the lived reality of what's become known as endoviolence. And endoviolence encompasses a spectrum of harms, from overt neglect to more insidious microaggressions that sufferers can face from their partners, from their friends, or from wider society. So, for example, the perzine endometriosis recounts how pain during sex leads to the breakdown of Jeannie's relationship. And she documents how endoviolence arises from a lack of empathy through people's ignorance or unwillingness to acknowledge the particular nature of endo symptoms. As one woman says to her, "I have a period every month too. You don't see me crying about it." Similarly, Jem's perzine individual illustrates how this lack of empathy can lead to discrimination at work or at school when employers and teachers don't recognize the debilitating nature of a disease that can't be seen on the outside of the body. And in the medical sphere, the situation is even more stark, with people from across the world reporting similar problematic encounters with healthcare professionals. And here we can see three perzines in particular that identify the institutionalized aspects of endoviolence, from frequent misdiagnoses that leads Katie to have her appendix taken out, to years of diagnostic delays, and to the overprescription of hormonal birth control, which is a solution that can reduce pain but does nothing to solve the actual underlying problem. But the very act of documenting and sharing these negative experiences in perzines is a form of defiance and resistance. Handwritten, angry, frustrated, perzines provide compelling evidence, I think, that endometriosis is not just a health issue, but an urgent matter of social justice. So, for example, when Lisa Derrick sought medical help for her excruciating pain, she was dismissed by a female doctor who insisted her symptoms weren't those of endometriosis. Yet rather than accept this verdict, Lisa turns the encounter into an opportunity to democratically question medical authority. So Lisa's perzine stages a subtle but powerful act of resistance when she inserts her own words in parentheses, the defiant "they were." And by doing so, she asserts her insider knowledge that challenges how patient voices are often sidelined in biomedicine. So Lisa's voice here doesn't merely add nuance to this particular medical scenario, it actively displaces the doctor from a position of authority. And here again, Jem's perzine endo and PMS validates the embodied knowledge of the ill person by insisting, "It was endo, my instinct was right." So it's a brief assertion, but it insists on the legitimacy of an individual's lived experience in the face of medical delay and denial. And Kitty James takes this one step further. In her perzine, she pastes an ultrasound image that confirms the growth of endometriosis in her body. So by doing so, Kitty reclaims and repurposes this diagnostic tool within a personal narrative, and doing so transforms the clinical gaze, therefore, I think, into something more political and communal. So this is a visual declaration that encourages endo sufferers to trust themselves and what their body tells them, whilst also taking ownership of their disease. So in conclusion, when read collectively, perzines create an activist community that speaks out against suffering, both the physical pain of endometriosis and the emotional anguish caused by medical and social endoviolence. The texts in my corpus are noticeable for their distinct and direct address to the reader. As Jem says, you are not alone. And many others also include personal contact details via email or social media that reach out to their readers. But perhaps even more significantly, some perzines have begun to explore the language in which endoactivism is couched. So, for example, Audrey Dillon Sinclair points out that as well as cisgender women, endometriosis can also affect trans men, non-binary individuals, and even cis men. So in the fight for greater social justice, there's a need for endoactivism to become more inclusive of all gender identities, because in this way, no one is going to be erased from its collective narrative of pain, community, and resistance. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. Let me stop sharing.
Wonderful, thank you. This is certainly turning, meeting the expectations for a fascinating discussion, and I think we'll have a lot of directions we can go with this. So fantastic. So the final speaker for this session is David Greenfield, who is a educator, artist, technologist, innovator. I'm going to put his information in the chat here. And he is going to talk with us next. And let me spotlight. I'll turn it over to David.
Hello, everybody. And I have really been enjoying all of your talks and getting all kinds of information and ideas. Like Jeannie, my background is also in fine art, and I painted for a lot of years and got into computer graphics, interactivity. Early on, I was involved in computer-based training and kind of followed it through until I got to my master's program, and then started thinking about comics when I was just, I've been a fan of comics since I was a little tyke and read Batman Mad Magazine and the World Book Encyclopedia a lot. Now I focus on teaching in a global environment. And I always start out my classes to kids and to their teachers with an overview of the history of comics and sequential graphic narrative. And I bring it way back to the cave paintings in southern France, where you find inside the caves that were painted, say, 30,000 years ago, that are continue to be a mystery. On one wall, you find a bunch of saber-toothed tigers chasing after a bunch of gazelles on another wall, and it looks like a normal, animal chasing, except for the fact that they were painted 10,000 years apart. And it says a lot about the importance and the value of visual narrative. We know around that same time there was probably music being made, people hitting rocks or sticks, and maybe some dance, and maybe some very primitive forms of language. But we have no idea what it looked like or sounded like. But we do have evidence from all over the world of visual art. And in cave paintings and rock paintings in Peru and Africa, in India, all over the place. So it shows that the work that we're doing with graphic novels and comics has a long, long storied past. And if we follow it to, hieroglyphics to the development of the alphabet to language to Batman and to the work we're doing, we see that it's a natural progression and really illustrating the importance of teaching people visually. Part of that came to me when I was studying for my master's degree and was introduced to Howard Gardner's idea of multiple intelligence. I'm a very visual learner. There are people that are very audio learners. There are people that see science. And I began to think about how, if we want to reach out to different kinds of learners, youth or adults, we need to adapt our methods to address these different kinds of learners. Some people will pick up a comic book and just learn everything. Others will have to sit in a lecture. Others will have to hear music. There are a lot of different ways of learning, and we can't focus on just one. So as an educator, it's like conducting an orchestra. Now it's time for the drums, and now it's time for the pictures, and now it's time for the dance. So I bring that to the teachers, and the teachers really seem to like that idea, and the students love it.
David, sorry, can I just sorry to disrupt your flow. There was a question in the chat about whether you whether you have slides with your presentation, because if you do, we're not seeing them, and if you don't, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure we're doing the way you want to do it.
There are actually no slides. I have, and I could actually post this for later. I have a slide show about the history of graphic novels, or sequential graphic novels, but it's too long and I can never fit it down, squeeze it down to just a couple. So I'd be happy to post it and you could look at it later if that's okay.
It's fine. I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to make sure you're presenting the way you intended.
Questions or comments? My intent today, because I wasn't really sure about what I was going to, how I was going to present, because this came to me so late. I think I submitted I just happened to write to the graphic medicine people and said, look, I've been talking about you for so many years, because I have, every time I speak, I give a lot of different examples of how graphic novels and comics can be used. And I always bring up graphic medicine, but I've never been actually involved. So it was just kind of serendipity that I was invited, to speak. And so I'm like, well, what am I going to say this time? Because now I'm actually speaking to medical professionals as opposed to kids that are just learning. Once I got my master's degree in educational technology, I waited a year and then dove into my doctorate, and pretty soon found myself writing a dissertation on using graphic novels to teach social justice in schools. Social justice writ large. I'm not talking about going out on the streets, although it could be, but talking about people getting to understand each other so that we can fight back against the bad things that are happening to us, for making it really simple, but understand how we're all connected to each other. And with that, I started to teach. I was invited to participate in an online education program called KidLink, which is for teachers and students around the world to do collaborative projects. And that led me to a couple of other projects. And so for the past, 10 to 15 years, I have been teaching online to students and their teachers in Europe, Africa, Asia, India, Malaysia. Last week, I taught a group in South Korea that included a group from South Korea. My classes are always a mixture of people from around the world. So as they're learning together. They're also learning how to collaborate, because I give assignments where they have to work with each other. And when I see one of the needs for the future is that the need for more collaboration and more cooperation. Nobody has just one answer. Everybody has a part of the answer. And it's not just the medicine, it's the culture. How can we learn about another person's culture? I mean, that's an issue in a lot of medicine that happens, I know, in the US, where people come from other countries and they have a different approach to medicine. How do we communicate with them and say, your approach is great, ours is great. Let's do what we can together. I've been a fan of acupuncture for 30 years. The woman who was my first acupuncturist was the first American woman to be trained in China. And she had been studying at Stanford when Nixon went to China, and he came back with acupuncturists. And she asked her teachers, what this is all about? And they just said, poo, 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 poo. And she said, if a bunch of white men are saying poo, poo, poo to this idea, she went to China. She was fabulous. And she was able to tie together Western and Eastern medicine. We need to reach out to whoever's got an answer or a process or a protocol that can help. I have diabetes. I use a Western protocol because my acupuncturist said there was nothing else she can do about it. Fine. It's like, how do we, if we're talking about healing people, and this is not just the physical healing, but it's also the psychological healing. When I encourage youth to tell their own story, they're owning their story. They're explaining their story to people in other countries. So it increases empathy to other people. It increases the knowledge of their society and their culture. So when they grow up, they can work with somebody else without having to, without judging them. So I'm looking at ways that we can help. Like, you come to comics through medicine. I go to medicine through comics. When I get going on a lecture, I mean, I will bring up different sciences. I have books in my collection on philosophy, the manga guide to statistics, books about war, books about post-traumatic stress, all this kind of stuff that help people, encourage people, and then you can all reach out. We can all reach out to try to create a better society for everybody, no matter where you're at, how to work with them, and also how to work with people that may not have all the technology that I know I have in Los Angeles. Not everybody's got the best, the newest, and the greatest technology. I've taught classes to people in Pakistan where they had one cell phone and they were holding it up, and I could see the students and they could see me, but that was all they had. But we were still able to communicate and educate. I can say that in some ways it goes back to the old model of barefoot doctors in China, where they train people to go out to rural areas and participate in health, participate in a doctor. Well, with everything that we've got, we should probably consider that a little more now with the situation in the world, with the breakdown in medical care, people not trusting medicine in this country, and in other countries, people simply not having the tools and the knowledge available. How can we reach out to them for both mental and psychological? I know psychological is a really important part. At Comic-Con, I met a couple, a Korean couple, married couple, where he has, what is it? A serious psychological issue. And he does all the writing and tells the story, and she does all the marketing. It's a great pair. And they talk about this issue that he's got in a way that other people can learn from it also. People that learn about autism or can learn about Korea, not Korea, sorry. Can learn about whatever the issues are. And they can also, the beauty of a comic book that people often forget is that you have to read it. There's, maybe some AI involved in production, but in the end, we have to read. So that promotes literacy, which helps with everything else that comes along with literacy. Because I know here in Los Angeles, we've had power outages. What about the rural areas all around the world? People are going to lose their power. If you have access before that happens to a computer, you can download and print out books about every issue. So if and when that time happens, you've got something that can help you, and you don't have to worry about a president throwing rolls of paper towels to you. You say, okay, this is a paper towel that I can do X, Y, and Z with, rather than it just being a paper towel. I'm an advocate for graphic novels across the board. And I'm very passionate about this because I think they're looked down upon. You know, the first graphic novel didn't really appear until like 1931, a book called, here, I'll put it up. Let's see if you can see it. Oh, wait, here it is. The Four Immigrants Manga. It's a story of four guys who came from Japan to study at the San Francisco Art Institute. And one of them wrote a story about their experiences there, a really good story. And he eventually went back to Japan before the war. The book was lost for 30 years until somebody in the US came across it. It was not complete. He went to Japan and found the family of this man who wrote it. And they were so thrilled that someone came to them that they dug out his papers and he was able to edit or re-edit a complete volume. And now you can get it in just about any bookstore. So this is something that will last. You know, we can look at images that were made in the Middle Ages of I would say, prehistoric medicine, but some of the things they did, we still do today, except a little more sophisticated. You know, we can use it to teach history. We can use it to teach culture. We can have fun with it. It's a great medium. And the fact that you're doing this, and that's why I got interested in graphic medicine, of all the things that you can do with it. And as you learn about education and education through sequential novels, there's so much you can do, and you're doing it. Hearing all of you talk is like, as you see, I get very passionate and excited about this. Did I have something earlier today? No, but I have a class I'm teaching in Russia, Korea, South Korea, and I don't know where else, maybe India. I think that's tomorrow night. I'm across time zones. It drives me nuts getting up at sometimes 3 in the morning, but I try to bend myself to wherever people are at so they can learn from it. But I'm very excited to hear what everything you're doing, and I hope I'm always available to talk about this stuff and ideas and you know, the age groups and how to address the different age groups. I know that another one of my favorite topics is dealing with post-traumatic stress. I spent 2.5 years in the military, actually in the Israeli military in the 1970s. Ask me about what I feel about that now, and I'll say I'm horrified and majorly depressed, and it's just insane. But when I came back to the US after my service, it was through my painting that I was able to address a lot of the issues, because I'm a visual artist, and it was a way for me to express myself and to show what I saw and felt. And I'm not the only person. You know, if you look back to Goya, when he was traveling in the Spanish something or another wars in Spain, he did a whole series of prints based on what he saw on the battlefield. I have books about post-Vietnam, books about, of course, World War I, World War II, Iraq, Iran, everywhere, a way of explaining things that words don't always work. I have books on dealing with medicine, books dealing with racism. Like I said, all my books are either nonfiction, historical fiction, or just so out there and with such great ideas that I have to include them. And you know, it's weird when people talk about their literature that they're reading, and I say, when they ask me what I'm reading, well, I'm reading graphic novels. I'm like, how can you be reading graphic novels? Well, I don't read Superman. I did when I was a kid. Now I'm looking for the stories. I just read a fabulous book about Einstein and Kafka in Prague when they both lived in Prague in the early 1900s. And it was at a time where Kafka was about to explode with his literature. And Einstein had already come up with the idea of equals MC squared, but he hadn't finished it yet. And it was in Prague. And some real conversations and some supposed conversations that they were able to really, he was really able to finalize his theory of relativity. And I learned so much about physics and Einstein's theories through that book that I don't think I would have read otherwise. So how do we take all these ideas and turn them into something that is usable and affects people and impacts people? And everything that you've all said is showing me that you're doing it. And I love it. Keep it up. And if you want to contact me, I think I'm definitely my my numbers and contact are here somewhere. And I'm always, send me a message and I'll be happy to respond. And if I don't know, I'll laugh at you. No, if I don't know, I'll laugh at me and I'll find out a way to communicate, because I think these are really great tools for all kinds of reasons. I mean, Paul, Michael, Jeannie, David, did I get everybody? 1, 2, 3, 4, and David. Oh, that's me. So as you see, I'm a bit of a clown, but I'm very serious about this. I'm very serious about how we can use these books for multiple ages, for multiple populations and multiple cultures, and really work with each other. Once you do a comic book in one language, it's easy to translate it and then publish it in another language. So what we've got in English, we can send to Spain, to China, to India, to Armenia, to wherever, and the other way around also. So it's really easy to, it's a pain, you got to do it, but all the time that goes into it, it's really easy to cooperate with other people. So, other doctors, artists. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to support you and to promote my stuff, and which is really supporting your stuff.
Great. Thank you so much. Why don't we spotlight each of the speakers and open this up to a more general conversation, since we have some time. So give me a second while I do that.
I'm still fuzzy, and everybody is so clear. Interesting.
I think I've got everyone. So this is great. Thank you all for these presentations. I mean, what I'm hearing, the general theme is, what's next for graphic medicine, and I think we've touched on that in a variety of different ways, from democratizing graphic medicine more through, even lower tech, even comics already low tech, and going even lower tech with zines, to making use of technology to globalize and flatten and shrink the earth by connecting more through networks that are created globally, and sort of everything in between, using comics as a way of healing, particularly around mental health, using comics as a way of teaching. So there's a lot of ideas that have been thrown out. And I guess what I'd like to just open up the question to any and all of you. I think we've heard a lot about what comics do. We've heard a bunch about what comics can do. And I guess my question is, what do we think comics, and this is in the graphic medicine context, what do we think graphic medicine comics should do? Because we know, I think we've articulated all the things that they are doing, and the list is even longer than that. So I'm curious what people think about what they think, what comics should be doing moving forward. David.
I was first drawn to graphic medicine, or understood graphic medicine through the Graphic Medicine Manifesto, which I know many people here were a part of, and is getting a 10th anniversary edition this year, which is delightful. But in response to your question, I think it was said so well there that graphic medicine has to be there as a voice for the voiceless. And it has to be there for marginalized and threatened communities, because we're all going to be there someday if we're lucky, if we're not there already, if we're not born into one of those communities or have been sociologically, societally sorted into one of those communities, we may get lucky enough to be old or sick or infirmed. So I feel that is always the goal of good graphic medicine, positive, constructive, useful graphic medicine, to hear from these communities, to spotlight these communities, to educate on these communities, and thereby help them.
Yes, so well said. Paul, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I absolutely echo everything that that David said. And just with a particular focus on zines, I kind of think that you know, listening to Jeannie's really interesting talk about how she uses zines in a workshop scenario, and it's something that I've started to do as well with students. But I do think there's a kind of need for us to not necessarily therapeutic value to the creation of zines. And Jeannie spoke very well about that. But I do think we run the risk slightly if we say that that's the objective of what we're doing, then we risk kind of medicalizing those outputs by basically saying, you know, here, you know, this person showed that they felt better after creating this zine. But you know, my feeling is what we need to look at is these texts as works of art, you know, and this is why I kind of said at the beginning, really, that I think in relation to things like comics and graphic novels, zines are still kind of struggling for recognition in some sense, because, you know, everybody, I think, here would agree that when we look at a graphic novel, we see it as a work of art, and we talk about its aesthetics, and we talk about its ideas and things. And the same thing, I think, goes for personal zines. You know, that when people create these things, I think there is a need, obviously with consent, for us to then coordinate and push the issues that then arise from these workshops and take them to whatever level we can in terms of making those issues that arise from such workshops more visible. If that makes sense. Jeannie, do you agree with that position, or do you think that because it's a very personal act, as you said, that actually it should kind of remain at that point and not become something which is more kind of coherently political?
Yeah. I definitely agree with you in terms of taking these further. And the main thing that I was wanting to stress is that there are so many places that don't know anything about graphic novels and graphic memoirs. And the creation of a zine, for me, was to engage that audience in that process, knowing they could create their own, or to just spark their interest in zines, in graphic novels, memoirs that are about medicine and especially mental illness in my case. And so I wanted to find the places where there would be people who might take it further and organize these, find out where the concerns are, and be able to use these things in exactly the way that you're talking about. For me, I want to break into psychiatrists or therapists or whatever, in terms of getting them to read them, to provide them for their patients. And if they get out into the world in terms of libraries, I read a comment from somebody that mentioned that their library didn't want to do zines, and I think that's particular to certain libraries. I know our libraries do have zines, but that really sparked something for me, because libraries are where everybody goes. At least so far, we have libraries, and that's where the public goes. And if there are zines, if there are collections, and I've seen collections of graphic novels that the librarians love. Librarians, they are First Amendment warriors. I just love them. And so they will have a display. and I think they just don't give a rip about not doing DEI. So again, they are just heroes in my world. But that is another thing where these things belong, where people are just in the library, they can pick something up and read it. And for me, what it is to destigmatize mental illness, the important thing from, or some other topic that we've all touched on. It's important to destigmatize this, to talk about it, because, and I'm very passionate about that, because that was one of the main things growing up as a child in a dysfunctional family. Don't talk, don't tell, don't trust. And you don't tell the family secrets. Well, hell, I'm going to tell the family secret. And I find there's so many other people, unfortunately. It's bittersweet. Unfortunately, there are many of us, and that there are adverse childhood experiences that so many of us go through. In fact, I see the effects of it in our politics. And for me, it's that destigmatizing. It's that let's just talk about mental illness. Let's deal with homelessness or whatever in a more empathetic way, and put our money where our mouth is, whatever it is that will help. And what you said about taking these zines and using them in a way that forwards them is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
I have something, Jeanine, you said something about distribution, basically. And I would suggest to think about how we get zines of certain or lots of different topics right into the doctor's office and clinics, and just for free. The people that come in can pick it up, read it while they're waiting, take it with them if they want. Bookshops like comic book stores always have a rack for free stuff. Places that people that might be experiencing these different issues would be able to access them and pick them up and take them home with them. And that's how a lot of zines get distributed. Something I think David said, I don't remember who said it, about the quality of the art and how to do it. I just taught a class in Los Angeles, a 6-class series class, basically the Jewish graphic novel, nonfiction. And one of the books I use is by a man by the name of Elon Stavins. Brilliant, really nice guy. We did a Zoom session with him, but he wrote a book about the crypto Jews that settled in New Mexico, the people that escaped Spain to Mexico and then worked their way up. And some of them didn't even know they're Jews. It's a really interesting topic. But he used an artist whose work was very, you could say, primitive, just beyond stick figures, but with colors. And it was really engaging and it fit the story. One of my students who said she was an artist, which I have serious doubt, was telling somebody else, the guy who wrote this has obviously never been trained in art. She wasn't able to look beyond the story and was judging on the quality of the art because it wasn't like Superman. It wasn't 3D. It was very flat, but it was beautiful. And it kept you involved in the story, which is really what we all want it to be. And there's one more story, a book by a man, Christopher Ha, about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when he was he was 11 years old. He read a book. They were studying the Holocaust. I keep going back to the Jewish stuff, but he was a Vietnamese immigrant, a refugee, and he was so taken by it that he started to do research, and it took 1.5 years to do his own story about the Holocaust. And it's all drawn by himself, 11 and 12-year-old, complete stick figures. The book is still being published and distributed. The story is what really matters. I have other books where the illustration was just like, oh my God, this should be in a museum. but it fits the story. I mean, one of the things that we try to do is what a doctor tries to do to match the symptoms with the condition. The artist, our job is to mix the images and the story so they work together. Some can be completely psychedelic, others can be very primitive, and everything in between. And and the more you can do that, the more you can attract different kinds of readers. I mean, zines tend to have a certain quality to them, which is great. It fits. It totally fits. Other books, my manga guide to statistics, you may see, which is a great book for teaching statistics. And the author has a whole line of books about science. You know, he does a Japanese manga. And, you know, who can forget mouse? You know, with mice. Every book has a feel to it. And, you know, we can't put something down. Our object as educators and you as medical professionals and doctors is how can we get these stories into the hands of the people that really need it? How do we draw the images and tell the story that when they pick it up, they can say, oh, this, I understand this. I want to take this home and read it. Or I know someone who's got these issues. I'll pick up a couple of these and just kind of leave them around the house or wherever they're at. And I know it adds a little more challenge, but I think it's well worth it to get to incorporate that. And if you want to ask, no, I've never done a comic. Everybody asks me, they say, well, you're an artist, you should do it. My work is closer to Picasso and Kandinsky, so I don't do a lot of people. I know I should, but I'll let someone else do that. I'd rather read it and analyze it and tell you how great you're doing, because you guys are doing great, you guys and gals. Everybody.
Well, thank you. So we have questions from the non-panelists for the panel. So why don't we open it up to the participants? And Amanda has had her hand up for a while. So Amanda, why don't you unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, so I think my question is mainly for David, but I think all the panelists, if you have an answer, feel free. I'm just thinking about Susan Squire's kind of call towards a turn in graphic medicine, scaling up, I think is what she calls it. And she mentions that there's this impetus to decenter the human and offer a scaled up version of the illness narrative. Yeah. Now that I think is an interesting thing, but because graphic medicine has, at least until this point, the David Lewis, sorry to clarify who I was asking, it has often been on memoir, and memoir is a very personal, often autobiographical thing, and is often centered on an illness, a person's personal illness story. So when scaling it up to larger ego-pathographic themes, I guess my question is there anything do you think would be lost in this, this turn that she kind of identifies, the next big thing being the ecopathography? So examples being escaping wars and making waves, encounters with Syrian refugees, or stories that attempt to tackle larger problems. From a previous panel, one I hadn't heard of is the homelessness text. That one seems like it's exploring stories from a number of perspectives. I'm just thinking if there's anything that might be lost at the expense of trying to open up these larger stories or frames of reference with a sole single storyteller who is voicing the voiceless rather the voiceless voicing themselves.
I think that's a tremendous question and a very, very understandable concern. And it's sort of why I'm drawn to linking the macro and the micro together. It's why I want to encourage more regional graphic medicine to sort of set up their own beacons that we can then cross-link. Because I find some of the most effective graphic medicine for me as a reader, right? I just want to say as a reader, and tastes vary wildly, but I love the anthologies, right? I love anthologies like Menopause or like COVID Chronicles or like The Outside, non-binary and trans anthologies. I like when we get individual voices coming together that we can then collectively look at elements of race, elements of class, elements of financial status, then as a gestalt. So I think the concern that you're raising, Amanda, is totally the right one. I don't know that it means we have to change approach necessarily, but we can't lose sight of that approach, because if we lose the individual in favor of a sort of a class action or of a national action or of an ethnic action, then we are doing it a disservice. Um, I don't know if I don't have the answer. I shouldn't. A cis het white straight dude should not have the answer. Um,
I appreciate you tackling the question.
I'm sorry?
I appreciate you tackling the question.
Yes, I think the question that you're bringing up is exactly the question that we have to keep on the blackboard, on the chalkboard, as we continue doing these things. I don't think it shuts down any of these approaches, the zine approach, the personal approach. The Heart Association of America is welcome to put out and should put out materials, and we should take large approaches also, but one should not overshadow the other, and that's a real danger. So I appreciate you raising it.
Good
Thank you.
question.
Are there other questions from the participants? I am not seeing any hands up.
I think Criota is waving.
Two thumbs up.
Does Creota waving goodbye, raising your hand?
EM, I think EM has a question.
Feel free to unmute and talk. How's that?
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I couldn't get my hand raised with the signal.
Oh, there you go. All right, ask your question.
Okay, so you know, as a graphic medicine instructor to both medical staff, students, and also art students, sometimes I discuss how personal stories can also greatly influence culture, and then that also might make a political influence. But I've also seen some comics that might also have some graphic medicine stories, but they're also like being very specific that they're political. And I prefer to let my students like give examples to my students of like different books that could also have personal messages that could, change things culturally, which also may, as a secondary thing, change some political perspectives. I'm just wondering if you all have any suggestions of cartoonists, other artists or authors, or any specific books that might be really nice references that I could share with my students. I mean, I have some, but of course I'm always looking for things that are really powerful or interesting. So Paul, I see you raising your hand.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, I hope this is relevant, but I was thinking about breast cancer narratives, because I think within breast cancer narratives, there is a very clear political line in a lot of breast cancer narratives, which speak out against kind of pink culture and that kind of pink cancer industry. But at the same time, you can find graphic medicine texts which also talk about things like, I'm thinking of one called breast cancer, broccoli for breast cancer, which came out a couple of years ago, and it's kind of a very positive view of, you know, women taking control of diet and lifestyle in order to kind of combat the effects of their illness. And in that sense, it doesn't necessarily get into the political territory that perhaps some of the other ones, like cancer made me a shallower person and things like that. So I do think that like when teaching that kind of subject, I think it's really great to have a variety of different types of texts, some which perhaps are more radical or political, and other ones which offer a very different perspective. Because I do think the whole point of what we're doing really is to give that sense in which, you know, there isn't necessarily a coherent viewpoint here, that when you're talking about illness, it is very much about the subjectivity of the person who goes through that experience. And there are a huge range of different responses to a diagnosis of breast cancer. And so I do think breast cancer narratives are very interesting to give to students, in the sense in which you will identify very clear dissimilarities in the way that people respond to their treatment and to their diagnosis. So, you know, I don't know if that's something that you do in your classes, but I would suggest that breast cancer narratives would be an interesting series of texts.
Sorry. I was a massage therapist at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center for 6 years. So just also hearing about this will be more interesting. So thank you.
Right. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with Paul. He took the words right out of my mouth. So wonderful. I'm also going to suggest the growing corpus of gender affirming work, whether that's reportage on it and what's going on currently, or whether that's autobiographical works. It is drawing political fire all on its own. Even if the authors do not mean to be political, even if they only mean to express their experience, these works are getting targeted. And frankly, I'm trying to be as even-handed as I mean, I know I held this up earlier. I'm trying to be as even-handed as I can here, but I have to say, even if you think you object to, what do we call it, lifestyle, or to an identity, these works have to be available. These works have to be in public knowledge and be able to be accessed, even if you're going to knowledgeably object to them. So I think there's enough of a body of work, not to be punny, there concerning transitioning or hormone therapy or identifying or hate crimes that merit consideration here too.
Yeah, I use a lot of those types of comics, so it's nice to hear that. Also, I'm gonna, of course, plug Vishak Som. She's a trans, and she and I actually invite her as a partner for some of my work, gender workshops for graphic medicine, for medical students, because she is really great, and she'll also write some comics about her experiences with physicians, like, who are surprised at her transitions. So anyway, but I'm so thrilled to hear some of this stuff, because I'm partially on target, but there's always room for other things for me too, which I always really enjoy hearing about. So thank you. Anybody else, or should I just shut up and disappear now? Okay, I'll shut up. I'll put myself.
You don't have to disappear.
You don't have to disappear.
Well, then I'll just turn off my audio. Thanks very much.
Thanks for your question, Kyoto.
I mean, what I'm hearing in that question, some of the others, is that, one of the most important uses of comics in the graphic medicine context, but maybe even more broadly, is to provide a means for people to have their voices heard who are often marginalized and whose voices are not typically heard. And I think, I do a lot of teaching of medical students through graphic narratives as well. And what I have found is, what animates the teaching that I do is to try to give people a type of story that they wouldn't otherwise learn in medical school, a point of view for the story that they wouldn't otherwise hear. Hearing, they know pathology, and they know medical stories from a doctor point of view, but they don't really get as much from the point of view of a patient, or from populations of people who maybe don't even consider themselves patients per se, but they interact with the healthcare system, and they have health issues, and they need a way of understanding those experiences, and the students benefit from it enormously, and they appreciate getting these different points of view. And I think one thing that I've taken away from this discussion today is that we can really broaden beyond just sort of patient narratives, global perspectives, other issues that impact health, whether it's climate change or war, or trauma and things like that. These all have impacts on health, and are sort of part of the broad umbrella of graphic medicine. And we debate internally all the time, how broad should graphic medicine be and how narrow, and there's no like one right answer to it, but it's a great question, and one that I'm glad we're engaging in the discussion, because it's really important. And I think the panel today, you guys have all sort of illustrated the various ways that graphic medicine can be used, and is being used, and again should be used in the future. So I want to thank you all for this, and this might be a good place to end. We're just about at time, and it's been a really robust discussion, and really appreciate the thoughts of the panelists and the people who are participating via Zoom. And maybe what we can do is everyone unmute themselves and thank the panelists, and then we will say goodbye.
Thank you for
you.
wonderful session.
Thank you.
Thank
you for sharing.
This
has been wonderful.
Thank you all.
you
Thank
so
every
much.
single one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Vaya con Dios.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Buddy.
David, will I see you at Comic-Con?
Which David are we speaking to?
David Greenfield?
I hope so.
Oh, okay. You'll be there?
If I can get my proposal in today, then I will definitely.
Oh, okay, because I'll be on a graphic medicine panel on Sunday.
Oh, cool. I'll look for you.
Okay, okay. Where's your contact information?
Heck, I don't know. Right.
Can you say your email?
My email is david@davidgreenfield.net.
david@davidgreenfield.net. Okay.
And
All right. I'll be in touch. I'm in Pasadena.
Oh, hi, neighbor.
Hey, neighbor.
And if anybody wants to see my presentation, just send me an email and I'll send it off. Maybe I should send it to Michael. And you
Sure.
can just.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you also.
All right. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Ciao for now. See you in the funny papers.